Around this time every year, there are a new wave of Rotman Commerce students who are getting ready to enter the program in September. But for some, choosing their courses for their first year can be an extremely daunting and stressful task if you haven't taken the time to prepare properly for it. Today I'm going to be walking you through a few tips and tricks to make your first year course enrollment at Rotman Commerce go as smoothly as possible. Number 1, making sure that you're stacking your schedule. This means that throughout the week, you're going to have a few days which are super busy and a couple of days which are going to be a little bit more relaxed. The goal here is to make sure that you have some days which have a lot of lectures and tutorials on them, and then some of the other days of the week, you're going to be focusing on doing your homework and getting caught up with any practice questions for the week. Stacking your lectures and your tutorials on the same day is going to help you have more consecutive hours that you can study on days which are more relaxed, because you're not going to have to get interrupted for a last minute tutorial or a lecture that you have to run off to. If you play your cards right, you may actually be able to take a day off somewhere in the week so that you only have a 4-day week. So see if this is possible with the mix of Rotman courses and electives that you want to take in your first year. Tip number 2. Making sure that you take RSM 219 in the fall semester and RSM 250 in the winter semester. This is because for most students, RSM 250, which is marketing, is typically an easier course to take compared to RSM 219, which is financial accounting. You're going to want to take marketing in the winter semester because at the end of the school year in April, you're going to have a couple of exams which cover the entire year. So Math 133 is one of the required courses at Rotman that you're going to have in April, which covers all of the content you've covered since September. Having a final exam for Math 133 in April and then pairing that with a marketing exam is a lot better than pairing it with an accounting exam. So aim if you can to take RSM 250 in the winter semester. Tip number 3, avoid taking lectures and tutorials for the same course back to back. As an example, in my first year, I had Math 133 on Mondays at 5, and right after the lecture ended, I would be running over to the tutorial for the same course. Taking lectures and tutorials for the same course back to back or even on the same day is ideally not a good idea because you haven't had enough time to digest all the materials from that lecture, and you also haven't had enough time to practice with any of the questions. Tip number 4. Research professors before course selection. Taking the necessary time to see which professors are teaching which courses is essential and will determine the kind of experience you have with that course. Using Rate My Professor and other online forums is going to help you see the comments about that professor from the past, and it's going to help you determine which lectures you ultimately want to take. Take these comments online with a grain of salt though, because oftentimes there are a lot of mixed reviews for a single professor, and figuring out which ones are accurate and which ones aren't is really difficult if you haven't taken that course. So just look at some of the comments online to get a general sense of how that professor is and what their teaching style is. Of course, if you know any upper years or you have an older sibling who's already taken that course, definitely reach out if you can and ask them about which professor they took, because there is a small chance that that professor is still teaching the same course when you get to Rotman. Tip number 5, building a mock timetable. If you can't see your timetable yet on Acorn, I'd highly recommend using Google Calendar to build a mock timetable to get a general sense of which days you're going to have lectures and to also make sure that none of your classes are overlapping. Make sure you create a fall semester calendar where you can see all the courses you're planning to take, and then after that create a winter calendar so you can see which courses you're going to be taking in which semester, how many hours of class you're going to have on one day, and ultimately making sure that nothing is overlapping so that when you get to Acorn enrollment time, you don't have any hiccups. This is a great thing to do in the short run until your official timetable finally becomes available on Acorn for you to view before school starts. Tip number 6, make sure that you have backup electives ready to add to your enrollment cart. Make sure you have 4 or 5 potential electives for both semesters before your course enrollment time. This is because on the day of course enrollment, if you're trying to take a certain elective and you get placed really far down on the waiting list, you want to make sure you have a couple of backup options ready to go so you can slot them straight into your enrollment cart and just have them there for the time being. Make sure that you have a good balance of fall and winter courses that you can quickly refer to during course enrollment just in case you get placed on a couple of waiting lists. And the final tip that I have for you guys is build a calendar that works for you. If you're typically a morning person, then take some courses at 9 a.m. so that you're able to do some other work and get some other things done in the rest of the day. If you're a bit of a late riser like I am, then try reversing your calendar. So instead of taking courses super early in the morning, try aiming for a little bit later in the morning around 11 a.m. or even in the early afternoon around 4 or 5 o'clock. Instead, if you wake up a little bit later, you can spend that morning and the early afternoon doing all of your work and prepping for those lectures that you have to attend in the evening. But trust me on this, if you have a whole bunch of lectures which are at 9 a.m. because those are the times that your friends are going to class and you end up missing half of them because you overslept, then you're really just doing more damage to yourself. So I highly recommend just build a calendar that works for you. Thanks for watching this video. Feel free to drop any questions below in the comments section and good luck with your course enrollment this year.